The verdict of obedience of the Sharia court against a disobedient Muslim wife. It is a love story written in English and translated in Arabic by Dr. A. Ahmed. Copyright. All rights are reserved. All characters in this book are fictitious, and any resemblance to real people living or dead is purely coincidental. No part of this book may be reproduced, stored in a rival system, or transmitted in any form or by any means without the prior written permission of the author except by a reviewer who may quote brief paragraphs in a review to be printed in a newspaper, journal, or a school or university magazine. This is a love story about three Muslim girls who were subjected to gross injustice, severe violence, and abhorrent persecution by Muslim men, religious leaders, and imam, Sharia judges, and police officers in the Islamic community and the religion of Islam and its hostile, hateful, and abusive teachings against women's rights, which are innumerable. For example, beating of women, child marriage, circumcision of the private parts of Muslim girls, which is known as female genital mutilation or FGM, slaying them in oral killings, inequality between males and females in inheritance, testimony in court, marriage, divorce, men's guardianship over women, controlling their lives and destinies as if they are minors, physically handicapped or mentally retarded, and forcing them to wear the ibaya, veil, hijab, niqab, or the humiliating black burqa as if they are frightening ghosts. Muslim men are allowed by the Quran to have sex or rather rape without the need for marriage, captive women of war, such as wives, daughters, sisters, and even mothers of the defeated enemies who are called unclean infidels. Islam forbids a Muslim woman to become a president of a country or a caliph of an Islamic caliphate state or a boss at work or a judge in court. And she is strictly forbidden to lead men or a woman in prayer as an imama. Moreover, the Prophet Muhammad said the woman is an unclean creature, just like a dog and a donkey, and therefore as a defiled being, she annuls or defiles the man's prayer if she passes in front of him while he is praying. Many Muslim countries prevent women from going to school and work, and they are not permitted to drive cars, bicycles, or motorbikes. They are forbidden to practice any kind of sports, such as soccer, basketball, volleyball, and tennis. And they are not allowed to go to gymnastics, beaches, or swimming pools, cinemas, or theaters, or act as heroines in movies, or actors in the stage, in plays, or compete in such or compete in beauty such as Miss World or Miss Universe. They cannot compete in the FIFA Women's World Cup of soccer or football because Islam doesn't allow them to reveal their heads, hair, faces, hands, shoulders, legs, thighs, and hips, or put short pants like men because each Muslima woman is aura or a naked creature. Moreover, none of the Muslim women and girls is allowed to leave the house without her husband or with a muhram man. The woman is forbidden to marry, such as her father or brother. They are also not allowed to fall in love with men before marriage or choose their future husbands or life partners. The story is about three innocent girls, namely Intisar, Firdaus, and Muna. When the two girlfriends, Intisar and Suzanne, realized it was time to say goodbye, they hugged each other and started crying bitterly. The Coptic boyfriend Andri has to separate them from each other. Then he held Intisar's hand, shook her hand warmly, bid her farewell, encouraged her to move forward, or otherwise she might miss her flight, and wish her a safe and happy flight to Canada. Tears flood her eyes as she walks half blind. Her steps are slow and her heart heavy with sadness. She is so sad to leave a dear, wonderful friend like Suzanne. Intisar is now walking half blind in the departure hall because of her many tears. At first, she walked aimlessly for a while. Then she remembered Andre telling her that she might miss her flight if she didn't hurry up. But she doesn't know where to go next. She has not traveled outside her country before. Then Intisar stopped an employee at the airport and asked her where she was supposed to go. The employee told her first that she should stand in one of the departing passenger lines, weigh her luggage, and then go to the police check. Her body was sweating. The word police made her heart beat faster with fear. Then she stood in a short line, weighed her heavy bag. When her bulky bag was taken away from her, it lightened her burden. Her big bag contains all her clothes and those of her lover, Sammy. Before the sudden change that occurred at midnight, the immigrant lovers decided to use two separate suitcases to carry their clothes and other things. After deciding late at night, they were advised by the Coptic family members and not to use different suitcases. So they used one big bag. It is the same heavy bag that the bride Intisar brought with her. It holds all of her their clothes together. The groom Sami will not have a suitcase with him when he comes in the evening to take his direct flight from Sudan to Germany. After weighing and taking the heavy bag from her, Intisar now has nothing but her small handbag. Then an international airport employee told her to go for a police check and then go straight to her outbound flight and enjoy a safe and heavy flight to Canada. The frightened girl was encouraged by the kind words of the man at the international airport who weighed her luggage. As a result, she is now walking with some confidence toward the place of the police check. When Intisar got to the police checkpoint, she saw two lines. In one line, she saw three male passengers standing together, and in the other line, there was a single female passenger standing alone. The immigrant Christian bride walked towards the woman and stood behind her. As soon as she got behind the female passenger, an ugly police inspector in his khaki uniform approached her and said in a gruff voice like an ogre, "Would you please, miss, come with me?" The teenage girl Intisar immediately started trembling. She tried to speak, but her voice let her down. Her throat was dry and her body was shaking and sweating. A great fear arose within her heart. The police inspector put his rough hand on her tender shoulder, patted her, and said, "Young miss, you have no reason to be afraid of me. It is just a routine police check that happens at every international airport." Intisar felt some encouragement from his words, but continued to look at him suspiciously. Move, move outside the line and please, miss, come quickly with me, or you might miss your flight. I told you it was just a quick police check and nothing to worry about. Once again, the immigrant bride who is immigrating outside her motherland felt some relief, especially after the policeman mentioned that it was just a routine police check. She walked with him and followed him silently, as if she was a detainee being led by a police to a detention. The officer took her behind the police barricade and showed her some bags and asked her to identify which of them was her luggage. She looked at the few bags lying there and said in a stuttering voice, "My bag is not among them, sir. May I look at your passport and visa?" "I don't have a passport, sir. I'm traveling on an emergency travel document from the Red Cross office." "So you are an Eritrean refugee girl, am I right?" "Yes, I am a refugee, sir." May I look at your official travel papers? With trembling hands, Intisar opened her small handbag, took her Red Cross travel document and handed it to him. The police inspector glanced at it and handed it back to her. Where are your asylum papers? Intisar withdrew her refugee certificate and gave it to him. The ugly looking police officer glanced at it and then said harshly, where is your police permit authorizing you to leave the refugee camp? What is what is this police permit, sir? I have no such permit. How did you leave your refugee camp and reach Khartoum city? I may have had that permit in the past and lost those papers. In this case, you cannot travel outside Sudan unless we verify your claim. What do you want to tell me, sir? I cannot understand your words. You told me you probably lost those police clearance papers. We must write to your camp and check your refugee status. Maybe you are not an Eritrean refugee girl, or you are an Ethiopian young woman who smuggled herself illegally and crossed the border and entered Sudan. Then you worked for a while as an Abyssinian prostitute in a brothel house in Khartoum city, and later falsely claimed that you were a refugee. I swear to God, I am as I told you, sir. So please trust my words and allow me to leave the country today. How can I trust your words without conducting the necessary police investigations? You may also be an Abyssinian girl born and raised in Sudan to an Ethiopian family, and then lied to the United Nations office in Khartoum and falsely claimed that you were an Eritrean refugee. In this case, you are not legally entitled to apply for foreign refugee status in this country. If the Sudanese police authority in your Eritrean refugee camp confirms your claims, we can allow you to travel abroad later, but not today. Say, this will be a very long investigation process. Please let me travel now. I cannot allow you to travel outside Sudan as a foreign traveler who does not have a foreign passport and claims to be an Eritrean refugee girl without a permit from the police to leave your camp. Please let me go. I should be very grateful and indebted to your kindness if you would allow me to go now and catch my flight abroad. I'm simply sorry, miss. I cannot help you. I will take responsibility for allowing you to travel without a foreign passport or those official Sudanese police permit papers that are supposed to have been issued from one of the refugee camps. I need to show copies of those legal papers to the senior officers at the immigration department in Khartoum. Intisar, the immigrant pride, understood that her words might not help her in arguing with the stubborn Sudanese police officer. So she took his hand and kissed it and begged him to let her travel out of Sudan and immigrate to her new place of resettlement in Canada. When he saw her completely at his mercy and felt her soft hands holding his rough hand and her sweet lips kissing them, the Sudanese lawman decided to blackmail the beautiful and sexy Eritrean refugee girl. Then he said slyly, well, miss, I think there is a way out of this difficult situation if you will be willing to cooperate with me. Sure, sir, I will do anything you want me to do for you if you promise to let me go and travel abroad today. You have to cancel your flight abroad today, and then I can arrange some official papers with the permission of the Sudanese police clearance in your name tomorrow. But as I told you, you must cooperate with me. No, sir, I'm ready to cooperate with you now. A Sudanese British girl who disguised it as a young Eritrean refugee is under the impression that the international airport police inspector is a corrupt security officer who wants her to give him some foreign hard currency notes as a bribe. As a matter of fact, Intisar interpreted his phrase, "You must cooperate with me," as "You must give me some foreign money which you have in your possession, and then after that, I will leave you alone and allow you to catch your flight and fly out of the country." Accordingly, the beautiful and sexy immigrant Christian bride quickly opened her handbag and took out all the American dollars inside and showed them to him. "Dear sir, these are all the foreign hard currency notes that I own. Take them all and let me go. Look, beautiful young Eritrean refugee woman, I did not ask you for money. There are many surveillance cameras in this Sudanese international airport. Therefore, I cannot take foreign money from you without putting myself and my job at risk. So I want you to cooperate with me in a different way." "What do you mean by a different way, sir? I cannot understand your words." "Young woman, you talk to me like a little girl. How can you ask me such a silly question? You are a beautiful and sexy teenage girl, so you should understand what a man wants from a sweet and hot girl like you. You have a sexy, semi-nude body that could make the holiest religious man in the whole world fall at your feet and worship you, your matchless beauty." When the ugly-faced and blood-stained police inspector said those lustful words, the beautiful, sexy, frightened Eritrean refugee girl saw his, his, his scary, tiny red eyes searching her half-naked body like a hungry human beast that saw a slice of fresh meat within the reach of its sharp teeth. Intisar understood that he had been overcome by an uncontrollable animalistic desire for a sexy, defenseless girl like herself. She began to back away from him step by step. Then she said to him with closed teeth, "You are not a man of the law, but you are a despicable lawman." And she continued to turn away from him. At the same time, she looks at him with great fear, as if a poison snake is crawling quickly towards her legs, wanting to bite her. When she realized that she was out of his reach, she turned her sexy body and pretty face from his intimidating look and ran away from the police checkpoint. By then, there were no other outbound passengers left. The lustful police inspector shouted loudly, "Police officers, run after her, and she must be arrested at once. She does not have police clearance papers. Her travel papers, which she has now, are all forgeries. She does not have a foreign passport or a visa for any Western country." Two policemen immediately responded to his command and ran after her. The terrified Christian immigrant bride ran aimlessly for a few minutes before the two policemen reached and arrested her. Then the two police officers dragged her like a dangerous criminal and brought her to the ugly police inspector, who issued a warrant for her arrest. She is now under arrest and pre-trial detention until her claim and identity as a foreign refugee fleeing from one of the Eritrean refugee camps in eastern Sudan are verified, shouted the vile, lustful Khartoum International Airport inspector. "Take her to the lockup room at the airport." Meanwhile, the immigrant bride Intisar continued to struggle violently to free herself from the hands of the two huge policemen. She is like an innocent lamb or a wild deer that became helpless prey between the claws of two tigers. She kicks them with her shoes and bites them with her teeth, but all her struggles are in vain. There are two wolves, and she is like one of the female deer, so they are very strong for her. They grabbed her like a child and kept dragging her. While they held her hands and legs, her short dress was rolled up to her waist. Thus, her swimsuit or a little black underwear became fully visible. Even her top couldn't hide her breasts. They protruded her naked breasts out of her bra, revealing her boobs and their nipples. If the two policemen had decided to take off her clothes, perhaps they would not have stripped her and exposed her in such a shameful and immoral manner in a public place such as the International Airport in broad daylight, where the eyes of all foreign travelers and citizens, men, women, and their children, have seen her nakedness and nudity. In this inhumane way, the two huge police officers carried her to the airport police holding room and dumped her inside like a piece of human garbage. Unfortunately, the so-called disobedient Muslim wife Intisar, who fled for several months from the rule of obedience, missed her flight to Doha and Frankfurt international airports because she broke the law by trying to travel outside the satanic and democratic Islamic kingdom of Tartars without permission from the police to leave her refugee camp in eastern Sudan. In the meantime, the Coptic girl Suzanne and her Christian boyfriend Andre waited outside the departure hall of the international airport until they saw the Qatar Airways plane take off. Then they waved their hands at the gigantic plane while it was flying like a big female eagle, carrying its innocent youngsters inside its stomach, for fear that the falcon, which is the symbol of Sudan, would bounce on them and swallow them in its voracious belly. Then the two Christian friends exited Khartoum's only international airport in the country, with heart full of contrasting feelings of joy and sadness. They went to their big car. On their way back home, the Coptic girl Intisar and her boyfriend Andre recalled how some of their Christian friends tried to dissuade them from helping the disobedient Muslim wife Intisar, who is a fugitive from justice because she is an apostate girl of Islamic origins who has become a secret Christian. They told them over and over again that it was a high stakes in a strictly religious Muslim majority society like Sudan. If they do so and are caught by the police, they will be severely punished under Islamic law. Suzanne, her friend Andre, and her Coptic family members trusted God and did what good Christians should do to help a sister in Christ, like the converted Muslim girl Intisar, the apostate who was born again through the Holy Spirit and became a Christian girl. She came to their church as a beggar, looking for a living and shelter, while she was then homeless, barefoot, and disobedient wife fleeing from the verdict of obedience of the Sharia court, and therefore wanted by the police and her alleged Muslim husband, Hassan Mahjoub al-Hilali. The two Coptic lovers saw that they had succeeded in sending her today outside her motherland as a beauty queen and a holy Christian bride to the promised land that flows with milk, honey, and abundant money that can be collected from the streets in Canada, like dirty garbage scattered in every nook, corner, road, and house in Sudan, like flies in millions during the day and mosquitoes in the billions at night. Then the sweet Coptic girl Suzanne wiped away the tears of joy and sadness from her beautiful eyes once she recalled those memories of her friend, the beautiful Christian immigrant bride in Tisar. Chapter 75. A beautiful and sexy bride is flying out of the country tonight. At around 5 o'clock in the evening of the same fateful day, when the Christian immigrant bride in Tisar was arrested at Khartoum International Airport, the two spies, Nisir and Jigir, came out of their evening slumber when they saw some people coming out of the Coptic house. One of them is an elderly man with two young men. The old man and one of the two boys are the same two men who helped carry a heavy bag and put it in the large car in which the two beautiful girls left the house before. Among the three men, the two Zaks, Jigir and Nisir, can easily identify the handsome young man Sami Osman al Tayyib. Although he wears different outfits, the two spies understand that he is disguised as a foreign boy, an Eritrean refugee. Then the three men stop a taxi and got in it. Immediately, the two spies also stop another taxi and order the driver to follow the front cab. As the second taxi chases after the ferry's cab, the two Zaks face a dilemma. First, they try to find out if there is any connection between the beautiful movie superstar Indian heroine they had earlier seen coming out of the Coptic house in her revealing clothes and sexy semi-naked body, and the crazy boy in disguise Sami. In strong and clear language, the spy Nisir insisted that the former beautiful girl cannot be the legally wanted, disobedient, runaway Muslim wife of Hassan Mahjoub al-Hilali. He said even if she came back and told him I was intisar, he wouldn't believe her. So the spy Nisir strived to convince the spy Jigir that the beautiful and sexy half-naked infidel movie actress that they had seen before emerging from the house of the Coptic Christians could not be the wanted fugitive wife, but the other ugly spy Jigir concluded that if she is intisar disguised as a young Asuban refugee girl, she must be waiting for her mad lover Sami at Khartoum International Airport. To avoid any problem with their dangerous boss Tia, the two conflicting spies decided to refer the matter to him and inform him of their problem. Wherefore, at an intersection, Jigir jumped out of the taxi and allowed Nisir alone to continue following the other taxi. Biggest by Tia Kuku, the devil's son, was taking his evening nap with his little red eyes open and half closed in front of the Star Hotel when he heard his mobile phone ring. He put his hand in his pocket and removed the phone. He is expecting a call from the selfish rival lover. The groom Hassan and his new bride Susan have moved into the hotel where the newly married couple Salah and Muna are staying. In this way, the movements of the two married lovers were monitored both from the inside and from the outside. Yes, Hassan, Jigir, what is the problem, man? Sam is on his way to the international airport. Is Sam still alive? Is he still a crazy young man like Case, Majnun Layla? Are you sure he doesn't look like a lunatic, acts like a moron? Who is the beautiful and sexy movie superstar Indian heroine you are talking about? How she looked in her appearance, like the infidel, impure Christian Cuban girl? You are both very stupid spies. The promiscuous, fugitive Muslim wife who was fucked by the cock of Sami in her hairy pussy and big ass who is still fleeing from the role of obedience was definitely Hassan's wife Intisar. It is the same mistake we made before when she disguised as a sweet gay boy, escaped into the night before our very eyes in the city of Gadarif. The old zombie, the Rakola Osman al Tayyib, the wicked devil, will not pay us money if he knows that she escaped disguised as an Abyssinian beach before our eyes again. When did the mad man Sami go to the airport? Then the sexy Layla must have been waiting at the airport for her crazy lover Kais, who had sex with her, enlarged pussy and big butt. So you must take another taxi and rush to Khartoum airport at once. I'm on my way there too. Call Nisir and told him not to let Sami shake him off or hide from him. I will bring her gay Muslim husband Hassan, Mahjoub al Hilal, and we will both come in the same taxi to the international airport. Well, Gigir, see you soon at the Khartoum International Airport. These last words were spoken by Chief Tia as he hurried to Hassan's room. He crossed the road as if running 100-meter race and entered the hotel without getting permission from the receptionist. He started running upstairs as if he was being chased by the police. The bearded faced receptionist man shouted behind him and ordered him to come back, but he didn't stop nor heed his angry words. When the big spy arrived at the room of the groom Hassan and the bride Suzanne, number 113, he knocked on the door with his big hands. A female voice, annoying and sharp as a knife, answered the knock on the door of the honeymoon room. She is the first innocent girl to have been brutally raped by a sexual predator as part of her yet another Islamic plot for halal marriage, and her virginity violently robbed. The female's voice asked with fear and trembling, Who are there? Open the door quickly, shouted a hoarse voice like an African hyena. Tell your fucking husband, Hassan, to hurry up. We must be at the international airport as soon as possible. The young bride opened the door and saw the spy Tia standing in front of the door like the angel of death. In response, she quickly closed the door in his face. She felt as if she saw Satan himself standing by his horns on his huge, ugly head. Who are you? The extremely frightened young lady shouted again. I'm the devil. Get out of here before I call hotel security and tell them to kick you on your dirty butt. Silly ugly woman, say to the man who fucks your pussy every night, I'm Tia Kuku with the Shaitano. If you don't like my pretty name, just tell him that some important person from Mr. Osman al Shaitan al Tayyib has come to meet you. But who are you? I'm the angel of death who came out of hell to cut off your husband's dick and then have sex with your light pussy, which lost its virginity a few days ago as a result of being fucked too much. If you don't get out of here, I will call the police too. The groom Hassan overhears the unpleasant conversation between his frightened bride Sausan and the leader of his gang of spies, the vulgar Tia. So he too opened his vile mouth and shouted loudly, My cursed and fucking second Muslim wife, Sausan, stop fighting with my good guest before I pronounce you divorce thrice at once and come out and beat you as well. And then the angry husband ordered his second Muslim wife to let his important guest in. The frightened bride, out of the fear of being divorced and beaten, reopened the door and ran, standing a few meters away. Immediately, the great spy, the son of Satan, Kuku, entered and began searching everywhere for the alleged husband of the so-called disobedient Muslim wife, the fleeing from the rule of obedience in Tisar. Where is your fucking husband? He's taking a shower. Go get him right away before I do so and pull him out of the bathroom naked and wet. Tell him we have to fly at the speed of light to the international airport now. Who are you? I'm the ringleader of the 3 spies for your fucking husband, and I have an emergency case on my hands. My husband cannot go with you to the international airport now. We booked our tickets to watch a beautiful Egyptian movie in the Chinese Friendship Hall. All the damning, this is woman's problem. They always talk about rubbish, gossip, and empty talk that does not enrich or satisfy. Even if this is the last Arabic movie your husband will see before his death, he must cancel it and he must come with us to Khartoum International Airport. Why do you want to take my husband to the airport? You want him to see how many people are going out of the country tonight. Do you think I am a little girl whom you can fool her? Fucking whore. Please call your gay husband and don't waste my time asking those stupid and unnecessary questions. What should I tell him? What reason would my handsome groom leave me as his beautiful new bride and go with you and the other three criminal spies to the airport? Tell him that the sweet runaway bird has been found and is flying out of the country tonight. Who is she? Are you talking about another girl? I said that she's a female bird, not a human girl. Although she is sweet, sexy, and 100 times more beautiful than you. You are talking about a young woman. My husband is not a cheater. What is wrong with you, lady? Is every female bird a human woman? Would you take me to a stupid, moron, and dumb wife? You are a vile, degenerated, bitty asshole, or else you wouldn't waste my time trying to convince me that the male birds had no females fuck them in their hairy pussies. If they don't have sex with their females, how can they get their young ones? You are not a You are not a man of good morals. You must be some kind of a bimp who came to take my faithful husband to have sex for money with a whore in a brothel in Khartoum, or to spoil his good morals and make him a scum like you rotting guy. I told you, daughter of the dog and daughter of the haram, that I am not talking about another woman. I'm talking about a beautiful, sexy female bird flying out of this country tonight. No, you are talking about a whore. I must know who that beautiful and sexy young woman is before I agreed with my good husband to go with you to Khartoum airport. Is she his disobedient, rebellious, and runaway diamond Ferris Muslim wife Intisar? Leader Tia was disturbed by the argument of the second Muslim wife of Hassan, who was harmful and ugly, and therefore he opened his big mouth as if he was going to swallow her alive like a hungry crocodile and shouted loudly, Hassan Mahjoub al Hilali, the beautiful and sexy bird that ran away from you, my two men, Jagger and Nisir, was spotted by them. She's flying out of the country tonight. Hurry up, or I will never see her again and taste her honey. These disturbing words made Safsa's groom, the alleged husband of Intisar Hassan, fly out of the bathroom like an eagle that escaped from its cage. He is only wearing his underwear and nothing else. He first ran to a large bag, opened it, and then snatched a shirt and pants from it. In a matter of seconds, these two pieces of swing clothes hung on his wet body like a clothes hanger. He put on his shoes, but forgot to put on his socks. Then he opened one of his other small bags and found some official papers of great importance in the beautiful and exciting case of the fugitive bird which is flying tonight out of the Democratic Republic of Satan. In fact, he became very upset in his heart when he learned that she was flying out of the kingdom of Tartarus forever, and he may not get a chance to taste the sweetness and honey of her small virgin pussy even once. Therefore, he concludes he may not see her unmatchable beauty, have sex with her sexy body, and suck and lick her honey and fuck her pussy, even once in his life. If she flies outside the land of suffering and persecution, then he slipped those official papers into his pocket and shouted, "Let us go, Tia." The two men rushed toward the door, but Mrs. Al Hilali blocked their way and tried to prevent her cheating husband from leaving her in the hotel room during their honeymoon and going to sleep with the booty of her rival, the beautiful and sexy teenage girl Intisar. "I also want to come with you," cried the new bride angrily. "This is an impossible request. You will spoil everything if you come with us. I have to come to the international airport and see the beautiful and sexy girl who made you act crazy in front of your new bride, running around the room without clothes and wearing shoes without socks." Hassan understood that he wasted a lot of time dressing the way his second Muslim wife had described him, and about her unnecessary argument with Tia over whether the vegetative beauty was a human female or a female bird. And if he had to take off his shoes and put on his stockings and persuade her, then the beautiful, sexy, vegetative female sparrow would fly out, and then he would never dream of enjoying her sweetness and beauty. And so he stretched forward his right hand and took hold of his ugly and obstinate new bride's shoulder and pulled her into the room, while his right hand is dragging the fat body of his angry second wife. His left hand is trying to remove the huge body of Tia, the devil's son, from the room. He miraculously succeeded in performing these two impossible tasks. Then he ran out of the room, leaving his angry bride Susan screaming at the top of her voice, cursing him and insulting the alleged beam who had come to take him to her rival, the beautiful Intisar, or to a sexy Abyssinian whore in a brothel house in Khartoum city. After that, the selfish, lustful groom Hassan closed the door of the room number 113 in the face of his obese, ugly bride Susan. Immediately he took a key from his pocket and locked her inside. He does not care if his second wife committed suicide in his absence or was burned alive by the fire or bleeding to death in case of an accident. Hassan and Tia entered Khartoum International Airport, rushing like two passengers about to miss their flight abroad. The two other ugly spies, Nisir and Jigir, saw them and ran to meet them. In short, tell them the whereabouts of the beloved, the competitor for the heart of the sweet and amazing sparrow, the disobedient Muslim wife in Intisar, who is fleeing from the verdict of obedience of the Sharia court. He is Sami Asmal Tayyib, Qais al Majnoon, who found his missing beloved Arab girl Layla and married her and fucked her virgin pussy and tasted her honey. The alleged legal Muslim husband Hassan immediately began looking for a law enforcement officer at Khartoum International Airport. He saw an ugly police officer idling around with no useful work to do except stare lustfully at the beautiful female passengers, while his penis stood inside his khaki uniform like a Ramadan cannon, ready to fire into the bush of any stray female passenger. "Excuse me, police officer," said the groom Hassan. The lustful lawman angrily shouted at him, "What do you want?" "My name is Hassan Mahjoub al Hilali. I'm the son of the most famous politician in the city of Gadarif. My first legal Muslim wife ran away from me with another man, I have here in my possession all the legal papers necessary to substantiate my claim. She's Anash's wife of a disobedience, fugitive from the ruling of obedience issued by the Sharia court in Gadaref city, and therefore she is required to be arrested by the police. With me is our Sharia Islamic marriage contract and the obedience ruling issued against her by His Eminence, Sharia Court Judge Abdul Mohsin Taha, in my hometown. I have just learned through reliable sources that she was seen at this airport and also witnessing the treasurer's man she ran away with and cheating on me with him. Most likely they are trying to escape tonight to some other Western foreign country. Look, I don't care who the hell you are or who your father is, and yet I am prepared to do my duty as a faithful servant of the law. But I warn you in advance with these three ugly faces. If, after the necessary search and investigation, you are found to be making a false complaint against innocent people, you and these three criminals will go behind bars with you tonight. Yes, sir, I'm very sure of my complaint. Where is your Muslim wife who ran away from you? And where is her lover with whom she fled? The fucking guy was spotted a few minutes ago by my two bodyguards, Nisir and Jigir. My cheating wife, who is running away from me, is probably hiding in the departure hall. Please follow me and show me where they are hiding. In the meantime, the handsome groom Sami said goodbye to the Christian priest Matta Hanna and to the friend of the Coptic sweet girl Suzanne, the good-looking young man Andre, and headed straight to the police checkpoint office where his beautiful bride Intisar had been arrested a few hours earlier. He does not have a big bag for weight and shipping. He found two long lines of passengers stopped in a queue. As soon as he stood in line, his mind became occupied with many thoughts. He deeply regrets that he will forever leave his beloved country Sudan and migrate to a foreign western land to seek refugee resettlement. His eyes are still welling up with tears from bidding farewell to Pastor Hanna and Andre. He remembers his dear friend Loya Salah and his beautiful bride, the fairest innocent girl Muna. Sami had wept bitterly on the phone when he bid them farewell, and they wished him and his beloved girlfriend Intisar a happy life in the western foreign land to which they were migrating. His mind is also thinking of his beautiful bride who is now supposed to be waiting for him at Frankfurt International Airport in Germany. What a wonderful joy it is when they meet there and then sit together side by side in the same plane and continue their long journey to the new world. They will enjoy their journey, cross the Atlantic Ocean, reach their new promised land, and live happily ever after. They will then forget all their suffering and oppression. They will be like the Arabian Christian pilgrims who fled religious persecution in Europe and took refuge in the New World and built the greatest country in the history of mankind, the United States of America, which became the pinnacle of Western civilization. Beloved Sami believed that he will be like Shah Jahan, the Mughal Muslim emperor who built the Taj Mahal palace in India in memory of his beloved wife Mumtaz Mahal. He will also work hard and build a beautiful home in Canada for his beloved Christian wife Intisar. Despite the wonderful future that is expected to happen to them in the promised land of Canada, the groom Sam is saddened by the separation of his motherland Sudan. A mixture of sorts of joy and happiness clouded his eyes and made him not see what was going on in front of him until an ugly police officer grabbed his right hand and shook him violently, pulling him out of his deep thoughts. Sam is about to scream and run away when he suddenly sees the enraged police inspector rival selfish. With his rival selfish rejected lover Hassan Seitan al-Hilali, the huge boss Tia, and the others two spies, Jigger and Nisr, standing in front of him like black demons who have risen from hell and transfigured in frightening human forms in front of his naked eyes. Thinking he was sleeping and having a terrifying nightmare, he shook his head to make sure he wasn't hallucinating or dreaming. The vigorous grip of the ugly police officer with his right hand paralyzed his body and made his feet sink into the hard marble floor of the only international airport in all of Sudan. Can I have a look at your passport? The ugly police officer asked in a harsh voice like that of an ogre. Then the trembling hands, immigrating lover, opened his little bag, brought his travel documents, and handed them to the scary police officer. The officer glanced at them and then asked, "Are you an Eritrean refugee?" "Yes, I am, sir." Then the ugly police officer turned his angry face away from Sammy's handsome face and looked seriously at the hideous face of the rival lover Hassan, the alleged husband of the so-called disobedient, runaway, treacherous, and adulterous wife Intisar, and the other three criminal spies. Before he could say anything, the selfish rival lover quickly tells him he is not telling the truth. He's not an Eritrean refugee man, as he falsely claimed, but he is 100% Sudanese. I know him. I personally know his father, the wealthy business tycoon, Mr. Osman Taib. His father and my father are good friends. Can you prove your complaint to me? I told you, sir, that I know him and his family. Neither he nor his father nor his mother is a foreigner. He is not an Eritrean refugee. He is a Sudanese like you and me. Listen, Joker, I have no right to prevent anyone from traveling outside Sudan unless he has committed a crime. It is not my duty to check whether he is a refugee or a citizen. This is supposed to be done by the Criminal Investigation Department, not the International Airport Security Police officers. If you don't believe me, officer, ask these three gentlemen. They all know him and also know his father, said Osman al Taib, personally. So far, you have not proven your complaint to me, and I have forewarned you of the consequences of making a false complaint against an innocent person, whether he's a citizen or a foreigner or a refugee in Sudan. Well, airport security police officer, at least ask him about my lawful wife Intisar. He knows her and persuades her to leave me and run away from me and commit adultery with him. And they both live in a promiscuous and forbidden relationship. Have our legitimate halal Islamic marriage contract and a copy of the verdict of obedience issued against my disobedient wife by the judge of the Sharia court in Gadaref City. Then the rival, rejected selfish lover, Hassan with trembling hands, pulled those documents out of his pocket. These, Mr. Police Officer, are true and tangible legal evidence. So please good security officer, as a faithful servant of the Sudanese law, look at these government certified merited documents. Then arrest him and force him to tell you where he is hiding my treacherous runaway Muslim wife from me. I was not appointed as a security police officer at Khartoum International Airport by the government of Sudan to look into quarrels between rival lovers or disputes between quarreling husbands and wives. My only duty is to protect the traveling passengers from crooks like you and those three criminals with you. Then the police officer turned his ugly face to Sami again and asked him angrily, "Have you seen any of these four men before?" "Not at all, sir. I have never seen these four people before, and I don't know what they want from me." "Well, you are not guilty of any crime, and you are free to go now and catch your overseas flight." "Thank you very much, sir." "Enjoy your flight, young man." "Thank you, security police officer at Khartoum International Airport. May all Sudanese people be as good as you. Hurry up, Eritrean refugee, and don't miss your flight. I wish you and your wife Intisar a pleasant flight and a wonderful life abroad." The very frightened and terrified groom Sami could not believe his ears when the grumpy police officer let him go and wished him a happy escape from the land of persecution and never-ending suffering, and also wished him a wonderful life with his beautiful wife Intisar in their promised land, the land overflowing with honey, money, happiness, and good Western people. Therefore, he fled as if fleeing from four demons of death, destruction, selfishness, envy, or a Muslim terrorist, and in a few minutes he disappeared among hundreds of passengers. He leaves behind his subordinate rival lover Hassan and the three ugly spies arguing and begging for mercy from the Sudanese police officer, who is as hard-hearted as the ruthless cowboy hero in the movie The Merciless Saratana. When he arrived at the police checkpoint, the migrant groom Sami found no one except another ugly Sudanese police inspector with an angry face. He is the same lustful Sudanese policeman who arrested the immigrant, beautiful Christian bride Intisar hours ago when she refused to bargain with him with her sexy half-naked body by having sex with him as a bribe to let her leave the country without permission from the police of the Eritrean refugee camp in Eastern Sudan. "Why do you come so late?" the ugly police inspector shouted. The handsome groom Sami wanted to explain to him the reason for his delay, but the despicable police inspector didn't give him a chance to do so. Instead, he snatched the emergency travel document from his hand and opened it. He found an empty place, and without reading it, he took the seal of Khartoum International Airport of Sudanese police and hid the paper angrily and put the departure stamp. Then he filled a boarding card and gave it to him. When he returned it to the migrant groom Sami and shouted at him, "Go to hell. We don't want an useless beggarly Eritrean refugee in our country. Go away from us, you sons of Abyssinian whores and the daughters of Eritreans, maid servants who get fucked free of charge. You are you you are your discredited whore daughters are disgracing our country, the free and proud Arab Sudan. May God send you all useless refugees to hell instead of the West." The Eritrean migrant refugee Sami, who was resettled in a Western country full of freedom, dignity, justice, equality for all, did not bother to defend his honor against unjustified abuse and condemnation for attributing him to son who was supposed to be born out of adultery to one of the refugee Eritrean mothers, or that he was a bastard born to an Abyssinian slut. He pretended not to hear the insults and kept running towards gate number 17. That is the gate that will, within a few minutes, takes him out of the Sudan of hell, where his beloved friend Intisar has been horrifically persecuted, terribly wronged, horribly abused, in never-ending torment. She continues to be abused as a human who was born a Muslim woman, even now. That night, the rejected lover, the despicable competitor, Hassan Mahjoub al Hilali, was also arrested on the same day that his so called treacherous fugitive Muslim wife Intisar Ibrahim Mustafa Jabir was arrested. She was the beautiful teenage girl who supposedly ditched him and fell in love with the handsome friend Sami Osman al-Taib because he is the son of the richest man in Gadarif city. Also, his three ugly Zag spies Tia, Nisr, and Jigir were arrested. The four were detained on two serious charges. The first charge is filing a false complaint against an innocent Eritrean refugee by trying to prevent him from achieving the golden opportunity of a lifetime to migrate to a secular Christian Western country under which rivers flow with milk and honey and money is scattered in the streets like rubbish littered everywhere in Sudan. The second charge, which is more serious than the first lie, is wasting the precious time of the lawman, which, had it not been for that false accusation, could have been used in the service of society in a better way. At last, subordinate, lover, and egoistical whirlwind were finally thrown behind bars, where many of his co-conspirators went before him in shackles. Chapter 76. Instead of flying to heaven, the Christian bride landed in hell. The immigrant Christian wife Intisar remained in the detention room at Khartoum International Airport until the police inspector who suspended her ended his shift. Before leaving he made serious and horrific accusation against her as a detained refugee, Eritrean refugee girl. In the indictment, it was stated that she was trying to travel outside the country without a passport and a foreign visa and had illegal travel papers, which is an act of forgery. She also does not have a permit from the Sudanese police to transfer her from her refugee camp in eastern Sudan and her arrival to Khartoum city illegally. She apparently fled her camp, smuggled herself to the capital city, and lived illegally in Khartoum. He also stated that she called him, "You are not a man of law, but a despicable lawman." Moreover, she had convicted herself and proved her crimes by trying to escape when he wanted to arrest her. Two policemen ran after her, and after 10 minutes of pursuit, managed to catch her and detain her. Despite her arrest, she continued to bite with her sharp teeth and to kick the two police officers with her tall boots. She even cursed them, both with many insults. She also called them evil policemen. She behaved violently until they handcuffed her and dragged her to the lockup room. Meanwhile, she was screaming and doing drama inside the international airport like a crazy girl. Her Backlash intrigued many Western foreigners and Arab visiting passengers from the Middle East. She intended to draw the attention of these foreign passengers to either help her escape from the Sudanese police or to show a bad image of the authority of the Khartoum International Airbus Security Police. Finally, she came in a very Finally, she came in a very shameful and dirty dress, which revealed to many curious onlookers, foreigners and citizens, her little black underwear, her breast, her buttocks, and even her nakedness, like her ass and her pussy, were revealed. It would have been more respectful if she had come naked inside Sudan's only international airport. She came half naked into the airport. Even young liberal Arabian women and other Western Christians girls may not wear one of them, no matter how bad and immoral such shameful dress. Once the indictment was filed, the detained Eritrean refugee girl was transferred to another police custody near the international airport. When she arrived at the police station, the female police officer in charge took her travel papers and her handbag. She even stole her US dollars and all her body jewelry when she was arrested. Then she ordered two of her policewomen to transfer her to the women's prison. When the imprisoned Christian immigrant bride Intisar was thrown into a dark room like a tomb, she could not see anything in front of her or around her. Her eyes are not yet used to seeing in the dark, but her other four senses gave her an idea of what was inside the dark room. First, that her nose had inhaled the most foul odor she had ever smelled in her entire life. It's a mixture of urine, feces, liquor, sweating, vomiting, farting, and bad breath. As a result, her stomach immediately reacted and she vomited out of her mouth all the food she had eaten that day. When she had nothing left to vomit, she began to feel nauseous. At the same time, her ears hear some sounds of snoring, moaning, crying, and gnashing of teeth. Those voices revealed to her that there were some living beings dwelling in the place where she had been thrown. But whether they were people, animals, or ghosts, she could not tell. To protect herself from these hidden inhabitants, she decides to stay where she stands on the hard ground. When Intisar felt very tired, she sat down slowly and carefully. Her legs are folded together. She hesitated to stretch one of her legs and touch one of the inmates of the cell, and this invisible creature might feel insulted and angry and attack her and kill her or eat her flesh alive. Then she took out her handkerchief and tapped it over her nose and mouth to protect herself from the deadly pestilence that she had inhaled since she was thrown into that bottomless pit. Intisar sat on her feet and hugged her legs for a long time. Her face rests on her knees. Of course, such a situation is not comfortable for her. Whenever she feels the pain in her feet or her legs becoming too much to bear, she stands up for a while, and when standing becomes painful too, she sits down again. She has done this forced, torturing push-up and sit-up exercise multiple times and for an extremely long time. She understood that she had to spend her first night in that dark abyss, standing and sitting. However, Her physical pain is nothing compared to her mental state since the time of her arrest at the international airport. The first thought that torments her mind and heart is that her plan to escape the hell of Sudan with her beloved husband Sami has failed. Secondly, her husband may go out of the country without knowing that the airport police have arrested her. Sadly, the police may discover that she's a Sudanese girl who falsely acquired another nationality. The police will also discover that she has deceived several foreign diplomats and obtained these travel documents through her lies. Fourth, the police may know that she is a disobedient Muslim wife who is fleeing from the verdict of obedience and therefore wanted by the Gaddafi police. Fifth, and it is the most serious offense that the police might discover her apostasy from Islam and conversion to Christianity. When she was arrested, she was carrying her baptismal certificate and secret Christian marriage contract inside her handbag, which had been seized by the police. Six, her marriage contract document with Sami will reveal their secret Christian marriage. Thus, they will be condemned as apostate Muslims and hanged to death. Seven, Christian priest Matta Hanna and his Coptic family will face serious religious and legal problems when the police discover that they encourage their apostasy from Islam, their conversion to Christianity, Christian, their secret Christian marriage, and their obtaining the nationalities of another country through forgery. 8. Her good and beloved Christian friend Suzanne Hanna may go to prison if the police discover that she is the mastermind behind everything that Intisar did in order to change her nationality and through deception obtain those official documents and her attempt to flee from Sudan to Canada with those travel papers. She expects that the corrupt Sudanese policemen may torture and gang rape her beautiful Coptic teenage girl, Susie, inside one of the prison's ghost houses. Ninth, the beautiful and sexy bride Intisar also expected to be tortured and gang raped by the same Sudanese policemen in the ghost house. She had heard many horrific stories of teenage girls who were severely beaten and violently raped in prison. Nevertheless, Intisar decided no matter what the police might do to her, she would not implicate the good Coptic Christian family in her charges, even if they cut her body to bits or rape her 100 times, she would not drag her Christian friend Suzanne to her charges. Moreover, she hopes in her heart that her husband, Sami, will leave their hellish country and immigrate to the West. Tenth, if she is not convicted of apostasy and killed as an apostate Muslim girl, the police may take her to the house of obedience to her alleged lawful Muslim husband, Hassan Mahjoub al-Hilali. He will rape her every day and turn her into a submissive wife and perpetual sex slave. All these thoughts have been tormenting her mind since she was arrested by that vile police inspector who tried to bargain with her to cancel her trip and allow him to have sex with her. Intisar knows that she would rather die than allow a man other than her beloved husband, Sami, to own her body and have sex with her. That is why she didn't regret her decision not to bargain with that evil cop. The detained Eritrean refugee migrant Intisar was taken to that dark abyss at midnight. She spent the first 3 hours struggling with her physical, mental, and psychological torture. She still has 3 long hours to go before dawn breaks. She's starting to feel sleepy due to her lack of sleep the night before. She tried hard to resist her sleepiness. She's afraid of the consequences of sleeping in such a dark room. She is finally overcome by her stress, fall asleep, and wake up every now and then. Her sleep is like a chicken sleeping on a rope or a person sleeping in a fast car. Whenever she slept, her tired body would fall either to the left or to the right or forward or backward. Whenever she is about to fall on her face, she wakes up and then falls asleep again. The refugee girl caught at the international airport spent the remaining 3 hours dozing off, then waking up in a panic as if she was in the middle of a nightmare. When the rays of the new morning rose, the detained immigrant Christian bride woke up, suffering from a severe headache. She also has a fever. Her body is shaking. She is sweating profusely as if her body is in a steam bath or a sauna. She feels like throwing up, but there is nothing left in her stomach for her to vomit. She cried bitterly when she remembered the night she spent sleeping comfortably in the home of the good Coptic family. As the beautiful Christian bride, she remembered the fun and wonderful night she spent in the hotel room with her handsome groom Sami during their honeymoon. Loving Copts are the ones who generously spend a lot of money on their wedding, their honeymoon in the luxurious hotel, and their farewell party. At about 6 o'clock in the morning, the bride, Intisar, finally woke up from her painful sleep. She opened her eyes wide to see where she was being held. When she saw the inmates in that abyss, she wished in her heart that they were animals, not human females like her, for they do not differ much in their outward appearance from the wild beasts of the forest. Even if they are pets or jungle animals, they should not be kept in such inhumane conditions. The beasts in the zoo are kept in clean cages and fed properly. The dirty faces of those inmates are disfigured, and their eyes are red and full of filth. Each one's hair is not combed properly. Their clothes are torn and full of filth and blood. Some of them are in dirty rags. Some of them are not in their normal senses due to drug overdoses and consuming too much homemade liquor. Some of them are crazy and do crazy things. Some faces appear to be beggars, and other faces reveal homeless females and idle street girls. All these human beings are women. They are homeless girls, prostitutes, murderers, street sex peddlers, thieves, and some other criminals. There is hardly any face between them that can reveal innocence. Most of them are from South Sudan or the Nuba Mountains. The rest, with the exception of the Christian bride in Tisar, are female detainees whose origins are from the western regions of Sudan, such as Darfur and Kordofan. She wonders why the suspects and criminals are always from these 3 regions of her country. Why are the Sudanese women who live in the eastern region of Sudan, like her, and in the northern region and the Jazeera province in the center of the country, good and righteous? Why should the former women be born criminals and the others be born decent citizens? Although most of them have African features, why are some of them called slaves or niggers, and some are called free Arab women, and their sons should be masters and rulers of Sudan. The detained runaway wife Intisar could not find answers to her inquiries, nor could she understand why she was asking such unanswerable questions. Intisar found herself like Intisar found herself like a lotus that has suddenly grown amidst a swarm of filthy, stagnant water and tombs full of dead bones. She's the only Arab girl, while all the other detained women are Afro Sudanese. The early rays of the sun revealed to her those fearful and terrible faces. She became very terrified of their miserable conditions. As she looked at them with fear and trembling, she began to see some of them doing incredibly disgusting things before her naked eyes. Some pee, some vomit, some do other things only stray animals can do in the open. Intisar closed her eyes and started crying. She wondered how the Khartoum police authority could treat people in such an inhumane way by not even allowing them to go to the toilets. How can they lock up the female citizens of the country in such filthy place? It is dirtier than the dirtiest cesspool or garbage container in Sudan. Even animals would not be treated like this in other countries. The beautiful bride Intisar could not believe that her great hope and promise to go with her handsome bridegroom Sami to the promised land would deteriorate it to such a low level. Instead of flying to heaven, she landed in hell. She wished she would have died by suicide in the Nile River that Sunday instead of being on the cusp of life and landing in such a filthy place. Since her arrest, her heart has been filled with anger and bitterness toward the vile police inspector who stopped her at Khartoum International Airport and sent her to this hellish detention. She asked herself over and over again why she was always suffering and tormented. What crime has she committed in life that deserves punishment everywhere she goes? Intisar wished in her heart to meet some good police officer who would believe her words, and when she told them what that despicable police inspector wanted, and then they would release her and let her go and resume her journey abroad, and it would all be just a bad dream. Hours passed slowly, one after another, like centuries. Morning came and went, and noon came dragging its seconds very slowly. Noon is the most terrible time of the day. The dark room has no windows. It was getting hotter and more miserable as the day continued to grow. There is no fresh air to breathe anymore. The stench intensified. The people of hell were sweating so hard as if they were burning in hell. Some of them farted continuously as if they had diarrhea and thus boobed in their dirty, tattered clothes. Their bodies give off a foul odor like that of corpses left unburied until they decomposed and putrefied. In such inhumane, horrible, intolerable conditions, the apostate Muslim girl who had become a Christian infidel spent her second day until evening. By this time, she is supposed to be with her handsome groom Sammy in the city of Toronto, in the promised land of Canada, flowing with milk, honey, and money. Instead, she finds herself in hell with the worst female suspect in the woman's lockup in Khartoum. If she was asked to choose before being detained at the international airport, she might have preferred to be in her grave next to her late sister, the second innocent girl, Firdaus, than to be thrown into this hellish prison of Sudanese woman, sleeping on top of the tomb of her late sister with the remains of the other dead people and among spooky zombies was 100 times better than spending the night detaining among these scary faces of the living dead woman in this dark lockup cave. Night is much better than the day for the detained bride in Tisara. The darkness of the night hid from her eyes those miserable black faces. In addition, darkness closed the mouths of these female detainees. Many of them either slept or fell into a coma due to the heat or became submerged into unconsciousness as a result of the severe beatings of the harsh policewoman who arrested them, or they died and were gone forever. As soon as dawn broke, these female suspects emerged from their slumber, stupefied by alcohol and the effects of drugs. From their mouths began to utter obscene words. They said the dirtiest human language Intisar has never heard or expected to hear one day. To protect her morals, she not only closed her mouth and nose with her handkerchief, but also closed her ears with her fingers in order to keep this book agitated. We will not mention a single word of their insults, obnoxious curses, and vulgarity. Anyway, around 6 p.m., Intisar began to feel hunger pangs. Her hunger made her notice some strange phenomena of the inhabitants of the abyss. From the time she was cast into that inferno until she became hungry, she had not seen any of the women of the dark dungeon eat food or drink water. So Intisar marveled at their ability to survive without these basic necessities of human existence. She wonders if these women were deliberately left to starve to death. Her conclusion is confirmed by seeing the starved faces of some of them. Yet she would rather die of starvation than eat or drink in such a filthy place. Another strange phenomenon of the place of torment that Intisar also noticed concerned the new arrivals. Ever since she woke up from her painful sleep, she has seen every now and then no less than 3 to 6 newcomers being dragged down by huge policewomen and thrown into the dark abyss. At sunset that day, the dark room was filled to the point that there was no room left for the new detainees to enter and sit or stand on. Intisar became very worried about what might happen if this feeling continued for another 24 hours. Many of the suspected women became stuffed inside the dark room like sardines in cans or eggs in cardboard boxes. There is no place left for the able to fall. The detained Christian bride had long ago had to stand on her feet because there was nowhere for her to sit. Some new females are dead drunk from drinking strong homemade alcohol or drugged with drugs such as just like stones. Some of the girls were severely beaten in the face by police clubs, had their clothes torn and their blood on them. Some of the prostitutes who were arrested while roaming the streets of Khartoum could not walk on their feet because of the severe beatings. And then they were dragged like tree trunks by the policewoman and thrown into the blaze of affliction and suffering. Some of the detained women suffer from open wounds and profuse bleeding. Some of these suspects are dying. Some of And some of the women have died and their souls have departed from their dead corpses. Intisar wondered why seriously wounded women and dying females were not taken to hospital emergency intensive care units. At 7 in the evening, the so-called runaway disobedient Muslim wife was arrested at the international airport, saw four policewomen standing in front of the door of the bottomless pit. They were They were in their police khaki uniforms. One of them took out a large key from her pocket and opened the door to hell. She is like the angel of death who came out of hell to release Satan and his demons from the bottomless pit. Then Intisar saw the four huge police women make their way into the windowless cell. By then, the dark cannot room was filled to capacity. To allow such large policewomen to enter, the detained women of the dark cave had to band together. The bodies of unlucky female suspects, like Intisar, who were standing near the solid concrete four walls, were smashed and crushed. She's pressing hard. She raised her feet against her will from the ground. She began to fight for her survival. She knows if those huge elephant women belong there abode in the dark pit, she will surely praise her loss and her soul will leave her body and come out of the place of pain and anguish. If such an agonizing death should occur, Intisar would prefer it to spending another night in that hellish grave. One of the four policewomen holds a list of names in her hand. She started reading aloud the name from her list. When each name was called, its owner was asked to come out. Intizar had hope in her heart that her name would be blacklisted, for she thought wherever they would take them or whatever they would do to them, it would be less cruel than spending another night in such a dark, filthy cave, which was worse than the den of wild beasts such as lions and lionesses and their little cubs. The policewoman kept reading her list until she came to Intisar's name. Yes, ma'am, exclaimed the detained bride. The policewoman shouted, come here, you street whore girl. Intisar somehow managed to get out with great difficulty. While she was leaving, she heard another policewoman shouting at her, saying, wait a minute. Intisar paused and slowly turned her face toward the four policewomen. When she stood in front of them and took a closer look at their faces and bodies, she saw they were men in women's clothing. She had never seen women who looked like men like these four policewomen. They have large faces, boobs, noses, mouths, lips, ears, hands, legs, heads, and ridiculously large bodies. The only small things are their red, fair-breathing eyes. Each of these four policewomen is more massive than 3 times the size of Intisar's body. Are you the Eritrean refugee girl Intisar who was arrested at the international airport? Asking the top policewoman among the four female elephants. Yes, I am, ma'am. So you are the filthy Eritrean refugee whore who told the international airport security police inspector Al-Amin Abdel Ghaffar Abdel Sattar. You are not a lawman, but a despicable lawman. The Eritrean accused Intisar remained silent. She fears she will be shot and killed on the spot if she confesses to the charge. Tonight, I'm gonna make you kiss my feet naked and be in your panties, you dirty street bitch. I'm not a whore. Please, constable, don't dress me like that. Shut up, you fucking dirty Eritrean street hawker. Then she grabbed Intisar's hand and pulled her out of the blaze of distress, pain, anguish, and agony. After that, she pushed her into a police wagon. The policewoman also jumped up and sat down next to her. Intisar knew that the giant woman in police khaki meant evil to her. She started trembling with fear, dread, despair, and panic. She is terrified even more than the innocent girl who has been tried and sentenced to death and knows that this is the last day of her life and these big policewomen are going to take her to the gallows and hang her to death. Chapter 77. The disobedient Muslim wife is interrogated by angels of death. The police wagon that transported the Eritrean refugee suspect Intisar and other female detainees resembles those iron trucks that zoo workers used to bring in wild beasts such as tigers, lions, hyenas, buffaloes, elephants, rhinos, hippopotamuses, crocodiles, wolves, and other cannibals and carnivores. No female detainee can dream of escaping from that mobile prison. When Intisar climbed the police and cage, she found it crowded with other inmates from the dark room. The detainees brought with them the stench of the mass grave in which they were buried, and then they were exhumed. Intisar had to squeeze herself between two huge policewomen. She became like a little girl sitting between two fat women. The police carriage moved as soon as the arrested Christian bride got into it. The wagon got out of police custody and entered the crowded streets of Kandahar city. Intisar does not know where they will take them, except that she knows that the four big policewomen intended evil for them. The circumstances in which the beautiful Christian bride found herself did not allow her to think of her husband, her handsome groom Sami, and the loving Coptic family. She is constantly worried about what will happen to her if the police discover her true identity. If they find out that she is a Muslim who converted to Christianity, her life and all her dreams will end. She was either hung on the gallows or stoned to death. As the carriage drives, her eyes look across the iron grid at the capital city's triangular streets. She sees many teenage girls her age walking alone. She recalled her experience of wandering alone as a homeless girl on those streets without money, shelter, food, or shoes. However, she preferred those difficult days to her current situation. At that time, she still enjoyed her freedom. In those days, she could escape from the police and those who tried to rape her. Today, she has handcuffs on her hands and shackles around her feet. In addition, they are guarded by by dangerous policewomen armed to the teeth. It took 40 minutes for the iron wagon to reach its final destination. All of the detainees were pushed down or pulled like sheep off the metal cage cart by the four policewomen. When Intisar was taken out, the first thing that caught her eye was the name of the place to which she had been brought. She saw in large letters written on the iron gate, Kober Centelar Women's Prison. Intisar heard many horrific stories about that notorious prison. It is a place where many notorious criminals were hanged, many famous politicians were tortured to death, and many innocent people were falsely accused and imprisoned for many years without trial. Some prisoners died before they could finish half of their terms. Many prisoners came out of this prison mentally and psychologically ill. Girls and boys were raped by the police interrogators and jail guards, and their fellow prison inmates. Some people entered this prison as innocent suspects and got out as dangerous criminals. Some teenage girls went as virgins and either became pregnant or gave birth to illegitimate children inside the prison. The daughter of a well-known wealthy family in Khartoum city entered prison as a virgin and was released with two children from the so-called Awlad Haram babies. When she saw the name of the horrific prison, Intisar wished that she was actually dead rather than still alive to enter this notorious place of detention. She saw that the brothel of the Bim, the mother Nafisa, and the house of bondage of the cruel wife Mrs. Sanosni would be better for her than this notorious prison. There she can fight and run away when someone wants to rape her. In prison, she will be powerless. She cannot fight and win against female vigilantes or notorious criminals. She knows that the detainee will be shot if she tries to escape. She even wished she hadn't heard the Christian church bells ring on Sunday when she tried to end her life in the raging waters of the Nile River. If she had not heard them, she would have died and gone forever, not witnessing such a black day. She asked herself why God did not intervene and save her from the despicable policeman who unjustly arrest her and prevent her from escaping from the hell of Sudan. Her eyes welled up with tears when the large policewoman grabbed her hand and dragged her inside the high security prison building. She is the same evil cop who's written to make her kiss her bare feet and urinate in her panties. What an evil woman to threaten such an innocent girl like her with such dirty words. She is also another vile policewoman in the Sudanese police force. Then the huge policewoman took the detained Christian bride down and walk a very narrow corridor. They have to bow their heads to pass across the low entrance. Rumor said that the British gentleman, Mr. Coburn, who created the notorious prison in the capital city of Sudan, made that low passage so that each Sudanese police officer, a local detainee, had to bow down their heads to him when they walk in. He would be sitting in his office with his big mustache, which makes him look like white devil, and facing the entrance and seeing Sudanese bound their bodies to him as if he is a master and they are his slaves. When they entered a small room, the Christian bride was given a piece of paper and asked to read it. The paper contains the charges written against her by the police inspector who arrested her at Khartoum International Airport. She has attempted to contest the charges and clarify the facts, but has not been given the opportunity to do so. Then she was taken to another small room. Two light policewomen escorted her into that room. Then she was forcibly tied to a wooden chair. Before they tied her up, they stripped her of her little shirt and short panties. She was left only in her black underwear and red bra. Intisar started to tremble in extreme panic, thinking that the two policewomen had set her up so that someone would come and rape her. She heard many horrifying stories of teenage girls who were gang raped by police officers during their interrogations. When they finished tying her up, the two policewomen turned off the lights and left. The small room became as dark as a tomb. Intisar opened her eyes as wide as she could, but couldn't even see her own body. Darkness engulfed her. This terrible darkness reminded her of some of the religious stories she had learned in school about suffering in the torment of the grave. She was told that the grave was so dark that she would not be able to see her hand even if she placed it over her face or tapped it over her eyes. After that, the interrogating angels, Munkar and Nikir, will suddenly appear before her eyes in snow white and shining clothes. Her female teacher in the Islamic education class also told her that she would be resurrected from her belly button and above. Her buttocks, circumcised pussy, rectum, thighs, hips, legs, and feet will remain dead so that she will not dream of escaping from these angels of death. The first question they will ask her is, who is your God? If she said something other than Allah, they would hit her on the head. Their blows were so powerful that would make her sink deep into the earth. They will put their hands in and pull her out. Then they will ask her, who is your prophet? If she says, other than the master of creation, the prophet Muhammad ibn Abdullah ibn Kilab, who was sent as a mercy to mankind, they will beat her until she urinates in her grave. Then they will ask her, how were you with your neighbor? Any negative answer will send her back underground. She should not try to deceive them. The religious school teacher told her that everything she did or said in her life was written on her left shoulder as her bad deeds and on her right shoulder as her good deeds. This time, the powerful blow will make her sink to the bottom of the planet Earth for a distance of 200 years travel on foot. As before, they would extract her and continue their harsh interrogation method. Their harsh interrogation method is harsher than waterboarding technique, which was used in the Guantanamo Bay that had been applied while questioning the worst Muslim terrorists in the world. After that, the two angels of death will ask her how her relationship with her relatives, such as her parents, brothers, sisters, uncles, cousins, grandparents, and other close associates, friends, and opponents. Any other negative answer will send her back underground. If she failed their difficult test, they will hand her over to the bull-headed snake. The length of this terrible hairless serpent is a 1,000-year journey on foot. He will bite and torment her continuously until the day of resurrection or the last day of judgment in the resurrection of the dead from their graves, who will come out naked and barefoot. The detained Christian bride in Tisar remained for half an hour, wondering who will come to her first, her rabbis from among the human race or the angels of death, Munkar and Nikir. Half an hour later, none of them came except the big female police detectives. If Intisar knew how vicious and heartless the female interrogators are, she would have preferred the other two groups, even if they had to gather all in the tomb-like interrogations room and rape and torture her forever. These Sudanese women in police khaki are tougher than the Hells Angels. Half an hour later, the door to the darkened room opened like exhuming her remains out of a tomb. Then Intisar saw some dark shadows creep in, and those shadows remind her of some scary stories about goblins and ghosts. She thought maybe she was thrown into one of the police ghost houses she heard about. When the door was closed again, Intisar began to hear voices without seeing the creepy creatures whispering to her in human language. Although the door was closed, she knew that the ghosts had not left. Their presence and whisper filled the little tomb with evil spirits and created panic in her heart. She now opened her eyes as wide as possible to see those spooky ghosts, but she couldn't see any creature. As her eyes opened wide, she suddenly felt tongues of fire resembling a flash of lightning attacking her eyes. Unbearable pain swept through her eyes and entered her body. If someone had stabbed her in the eye with a sharp knife or thrown chili powder in her face, he might not have caused her as much pain as she is now experiencing. As a result, Intisar started screaming loudly. As she was screaming, she heard the ghosts laughing. She tried to use her hands to calm the pain, but she couldn't because both of her hands were tied. Although her eyes remained closed, she could still feel intense light passing through them. It is heat and radiance burned the skin of her face like a hot iron. Intisar's face turned left and right. As she tried to avoid the blazing light, she began to hear the ghosts speaking again in human language. Listen to us, you dirty Abyssinian bitch. Intisar immediately determined that the sound was none other than that of that huge policewoman who threatened her earlier by saying that she would make her kiss her feet while she was naked and urinate in her underwear. We don't have time to waste with you. We have got a lot of damning suspects like you for questioning tonight. So tell us quickly, how did you enter the Sudanese capital city without the permission of the police permit or a refugee camp papers that allowed you to get out? Even though she couldn't see her figure, Intisar still remembered the huge body of the policeman disguised as a policewoman. Before that evil police cop could carry out her threat, Intisar decided to be careful in answering her question so that she could avoid the wrath of that cruel officer. Intisar said with fear, I came with my police permit papers to the Sudanese capital city, but I lost them. What is the name of the refugee camp from which those papers were issued? Listen, you dirty Eritrean bitch. Before you answer my question, I warn you beforehand. If you give us any wrong information, you will pay a heavy price for it. We will investigate any information you provide to us. Intisar knows that she is now facing a serious problem. There are 36 refugee camps in eastern Sudan, but she does not know the name of any of them. Once they cross the border and enter into the camps, refugees do not have freedom of movement in their host country, but are required to obtain movement permits known as police clearance passes issued by the United Nations or a host country government police. Intisar is now in trouble. She cannot just create any fancy camp name and answer the question. She knows that these female interrogators may investigate any information she gives them. However, Intisar made some quick reply which she thought would satisfy the huge police. Oh man, I didn't get police clearance papers from any camp. The Sudanese police gave them to me when I crossed the border. Intisar felt a strong stick hit her back. It causes so much pain as if a blazing iron had struck her butt and bare back. She started screaming and violently struggling to free herself from the ropes, but her struggle was in vain. Another strong blow fell on the same place and caused unbearable pain. Zero strike, fourth strike, and tenth strike. The policewoman who beat her seemed to have gone into an uncontrollable frenzy. She continued hitting Intisar's naked body with several blows. Her screams seemed to turn her executioner into a fit of rage. Shut up your mouth, you filthy Eritrean street whore. If you don't shut your filthy mouth, I will tear it open and fillet your skin. The defendant Intisar had to stop screaming. Her body was sweating and her blood was bleeding profusely like a reed. Every part of her body trembled. She felt as if her back and shoulder were on fire. The fire burns her body even though she cannot see or smell it. She feels just like someone swimming in molten lava. The huge policewoman screamed in a frightening voice like an angry ogre. The Sudanese police at the Ethiopian border are not entitled to issue such papers. Only the camp authority police can issue exit permit papers for refugees. So now tell us how you got out of your camp and got here in this city. I left the camp in Kassala city and arrived or a pass in Khartoum city. This time Intisar felt a strong hand grab her hair and bullied. She felt that the skin on her head might peel off and her hair might be pulled out. If the evil policewoman keeps pulling her hair, she might break her neck too. As Intisar struggled to save her neck from being broken by the cruel huge policewoman, she felt a hand as big as a cricket bat slam into her face. Every tooth and molar in her mouth started to bleed profusely. Her nose bone was also broken, and she could no longer breathe normally. Her nose is pouring blood like a faucet or a broken and running water tap. Her mouth is also not helping her to breathe. She felt suffocated, and could die at any moment. For a few minutes, her soul struggled to leave her body. One of the ruthless female interrogators poured cold water on her head and face. Whether it was some kind of torture, mercy, or even a slow killing, only God knows. But the icy water prevented her soul from leaving her severely beaten body. However, the cold water did more harm than good. The fallen water washed all the makeup of her face. Whatever her Coptic friend Suzanne did to hide her true Sudanese identity was washed away by this cold water. Now the Eritrean girl has been transformed back into a Sudanese girl. Ladies, look, what do we have here? One of the policemen shouted. This is not an Eritrean girl. She's like all of us. It's probably a Sudanese girl. The disguised girl heard these words as if they were coming from another world, far away, but they scared her to death. Intisar understood that the Sudanese police woman had known her true identity. Tell us about yourself, you lying bitch. Are you a Sudanese citizen or an Eritrean refugee girl in Sudan? Intisar said, panting, I am a foreign girl, a refugee from Eritrea. But your tongue is an Arabic tongue. So how do you speak the Arabic language fluently? No Eritrean girl can speak Arabic as fluently as you unless she was born and raised in Sudan. This last question put Intisar in serious trouble. She knows that no matter how she explains her position, she will not satisfy the investigators by giving a correct answer to the question. If she says that she is an Eritrean girl who was born and raised in Sudan, this justifies her eloquent Arabic language, but it will make her deserving of Sudanese citizenship by birth. In this case, she has no right to request refugee status in Sudan. If she did so, it means that she provided false information to United Nations officials in Khartoum city. In addition, the policewoman began to doubt her identity as an Eritrean refugee girl. The accused decided to remain silent, but silent is the worst answer a suspect can give to a police interrogator in Sudan. One of the female investigators lit a candle and began to burn Intisar's naked body. Another huge woman in police khaki uniform threatened to pull out her nails. The painful burning on her naked body made the accusing girl scream loudly. Her loud crying enraged the man disguised as a woman, and she roared like an angry lioness and grabbed Intisar's hair and pulled it against her huge chest. While she's howling like a hyena or a zombie raised from her grave, her vile mouth foams like a raging camel, and her huge body sweat as if she was sitting naked in a sauna. The policeman who disguised himself as a policewoman has two breasts the size of two soccer balls or two big black watermelons. As a result, the suspect's nose, mouth, ears, and face were completely buried in her large chest and hidden between the two fleshy basketballs of the huge elephant woman. The accused immigrant girl Intisar felt that the dinosaur woman wanted to kill her by suffocating her to death. She almost died before the tough police woman let go of her face. It is a much tougher police interrogation method than waterboarding. 5 times the evil policewoman repeated that cruel and inhumane method of extracting information from a suspect. Every time Tsar felt as if the huge woman wanted to press her face to her chest and kill her in such a cruel way. Meanwhile, the policewoman's massive body sweats as if she is in hell being tormented for her evil deeds. Her sweat stinking like bitter urine inside Intisar's nostrils and mouth each time she pulled her into her huge chest and buried her face between her two soccer ball-like breasts. Her police khaki uniform stinks as if she hasn't washed her dirty body in over a month. This is the cruelest torment any detained girl falsely accused can go through. Even the hardened hearts of ISIS terrorists who, who shouted Allah Akbar while slaughtering their helpless victims have not yet invented such cruel torture to kill their enemies. Muslim terrorists cut off the heads of their victims, burned them with fire in cages, and buried them alive in mass graves. But what those cruel elephantic female interrogators do to the innocent suspect Intisar is 10 times crueler than the terrorists of the Islamic Caliphate in Syria and Boko Haram in Nigeria. Killing her by strangulation is better than killing her by holding her breast inside a huge human chest bigger than any bed pillow in the world. After all these kinds of cruel torture, a heavy slap hit Intisar's right cheek and made her feel like she was hit with a big hammer. Her jaw was dislocated, her cheeks froze, her eyes blinded, her body became numb and paralyzed, as if she had been hit by a poisonous bullet in the face from point blank range. Meanwhile, the burning candle resumed its torture and this time began moving up and down on Intisar's naked back. She also began to feel a sharp needle or a nail inserted between her finger nail and the flesh of her finger. This last type of torture caused her to begin to reveal her true identity. As a result, while she was panting for her praise and her stuttering words, Intisar said in a low voice, I'm an orphan girl. We don't care if your goddamn dad or your whore woman, mom or both of your parents are dead. Tell us, are you a Sudanese girl or an Eritrean refugee? I'm an Eritrean girl. If you are an Eritrean young woman, you must speak the Kirinja language. What a pity. The suspect Sudanese girl had never heard of this language before. Intisar knew understood that if she falsely claimed that she knew the Tikrinja language, the policewoman might ask her to speak it or bring an Eritrean interpreter and ask her to speak with her. I do not speak any language other than Arabic. How can you be an Eritrean girl when you do not know the language of Eritreans? Tell us the truth about yourself, and I will ask you for the last time, are you a Sudanese girl or an Eritrean girl? Intisar kept silent. This time, one of her cruel interrogators began to use a sharp metal to remove her nails and pull them out from her thin fingers. The pain became unbearable, so the detained Christian bride decided to tell them all about herself. She preferred death than to continue such an intolerable torture to which they subjected her body. I'm a Sudanese girl by birth. Why then did you fake another nationality and falsely claim that you were an Eritrean girl? I was born into a Sudanese Arab family and raised up in the city of Gadarif. My father died when I was 7 years old. When I was 17 years old, I fell in love with a boy from the same city. He is from a rich and great family in our society, and I am from a poor and ordinary family. His rich father objected to our love affair because his son is from a rich family and my parents are from a poor family. In order to prevent us from marrying, his father conspired with my older half brother and married me to another man whom I did neither love nor did I want to marry. The rich father paid a lot of money to my criminal brother Omar to make him sell me in a sham Islamic halal marriage to another Muslim man as if I were a slave for sale. Because I refuse to acknowledge such an unacceptable forced arranged marriage, my alleged Muslim husband filed a complaint against me in the Sharia court. The judge of the Sharia court issued an obedience judgment against me. When I learned that the police authority would come the next morning to my house and take me by force to his place, or what is called the house of obedience, I fled at night from my mother's home and traveled by truck. I disguised myself as a boy to escape from the spies hired by my alleged husband and father of my lover to stop me from fleeing from the verdict of obedience that issued against me by the judge of the Islamic court in my native town. Then I came alone, disguised as a young man, to the city of Khartoum. I spent 3 days and 3 nights wandering the street of the triangular capital city of Sudan without shelter, money, food, or shoes on my feet. My miserable fate finally took me to a loving Sudanese family who sheltered me, fed me, and took care of me until the day I went to the international airport and was about to immigrate to Canada as a resettled Eritrean refugee girl. Before that, my lover Sami came from the city of Gadarif to the city of Khartoum and joined me and lived with me in the same house of the generous family that used to take care of me. Shortly after that, we got married. My husband Sami was also supposed to travel abroad with me on the same day I was arrested at Khartoum International Airport. This is not the whole truth. The huge police interrogator screamed in an angry voice like an ogre. You must tell us how you became a Christian girl. We found in your handbag your baptismal certificate and marriage contract, which show that you converted from Islam, became a Muslim apostate infidel, converted to Christianity, and got married as a Christian bride inside the church, even though you admitted that you are a Muslim wife married to a Muslim man, and the Sharia court in Gadarif city issued a verdict of obedience against you. The apostate Muslim girl who converted to Christianity once again found herself faced with a serious dilemma. She knows that the time has come for her to either reject her conversion to Christianity or to acknowledge it and face the challenge of conviction by sentence of apostasy. She cannot claim to be a Christian by birth because she has already told them that her first Islamic marriage was dealt with in the Sharia court. Moreover, her full name includes a Muslim name. No Christian family would give the name Mustafa to their son because it is one of the names of the Prophet Muhammad. In addition, Intisar remembered that she had read in the Holy Gospel or Injil that Jesus Christ said to his disciple, if you deny me in front of people, I will deny you in front of my Father. She cannot deny the Lord Jesus Christ and continue to be a Christian. She remained silent at first, but when the policewoman's huge hand gripped her hair and began to pull at it, then repeated her ruthless technique of plunging her face into the huge bosom and between the huge spherical breast and sweating inside her nose and mouth. The suspected intisar the suspect intisar was forced to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. I became a Christian girl in order to marry my friend Tammy. Who is that Christian priest, Gassan Gasha, who baptized you with water and helped you to convert to Christianity. He's a foreign Christian priest who came as a visitor to Sudan from Lebanon. Where does he live now? He now lives in Beirut City. And who is that Coptic priest named Hanna who performed your Christian marriage with your lover Sami? I don't know who he is. Sami and I entered his church and asked him to marry us to each other. Did he know that you are a married Muslim girl and you have another husband? Then you abandon Islam and converted to Christianity? Not at all. We just lied to him and told him we were Eritrean Christian refugees. We will investigate your apostasy from Islam and your conversion to Christianity. And if we learn that later that you lied to us, it will make you wish you were not born a Muslim girl. What I told you is a whole truth, ma'am. And then you and your lover Sami went and applied for refugee status and resettlement in Canada. Yes, we did that, ma'am. Do you admit that you and your lover faked the nationalities of another country and then lied to many foreign diplomats in Sudan and illegally obtained all travel papers to Canada? Our circumstances forced us to forge original nationalities and became refugees in our motherland, Sudan, and through that obtained immigration papers and resettlement uh, resettlement as refugees in Canada. You mean to tell us that your crazy love for the son of a rich man made you abandon your legal Muslim husband, run away from the law, be displaced from your family and home, abandon your Islamic religion, and become an infidel, apostate Christian girl? After that, you went to church and got married as a Christian wife, even though you are already a Muslim wife who married another Muslim man. And then you went to many foreign diplomats in Khartoum City and lied to them. I did all of these things because I love Sami and I don't want to live with a man I don't love him or I choose him to be my husband. You mean to say that you love Sami more than you love your God, your prophet, your religion, and your country, Sudan? I didn't mean to say that, ma'am. I have always loved my God and my country more than I love myself. Do you know that according to the law of this Muslim country, you are guilty of apostasy, adultery, forgery, bigamy, deceit, and betrayal? Moreover, you are the first young Sudanese criminal woman in a Muslim country to marry two men at the same time, one of whom is a Muslim and the other a Christian. So you practice the abomination of polyandry in a Muslim land, which is the adulterous crime of marrying more than one husband at the same time. Only Muslim men are allowed by the Quran, by the Holy Quran, to practice polygamy or marrying more than one wife at the same time, but not to exceed four wives. The immigrant Christian bride who was arrested in the, in the international airport, Intisar Ibrahim Mustafa Jabi responded to this serious religious accusation by crying and pleading for mercy, but her pleas are like water poured on solid rocket. Then the police inspector Sakina Khalafallah Abduddin shouted, "You policewoman, can you untie her now from the ropes and then put on her naked body again her scandalous, shameful, and dirty Christian dress designed for Abyssinian slots and Eritrean cheap meat?" Chapter 78: Unforgivable Religious Crimes Against Islam. The Sudanese people consider the police case of the runaway disobedient Muslim wife Intisar Ibrahim Mustafa Jabir who was arrested at Khartoum International Airport, serious religious crimes that had never happened before. If we exclude the Christian community from southern Sudan and the few Coptic families among the 45 million inhabitants of Sudan, the rest have collectively considered the case of apostasy and adultery serious religious and criminal offenses that deserve to be severely punished by Sudanese law. She is accused of committing adultery with her Christian lover Sami, and according to Islamic law, she is supposed to be stoned to death because she did it while under the cover of a Muslim husband named Hassan. She is under the charge of apostasy, which amounts to death if she refuses to repent and return to Islam within 3 days. She is also accused of forgery, deceit, and high treason and must therefore be punished by secular law. These last three charges relate to changing her Sudanese nationality and through deception obtaining Eritrean nationality and through forgery obtaining refugee status and her attempt to flee the country and adopt another nationality in Canada. In light of the serious accusation mentioned above, there is a general acceptance by all Muslims in Sudan that such an apostate, infidel, and adulterous girl should be executed as soon as possible. A serious debate ensued between religious and secular groups about which court should, should hear her criminal case and judge it. The Muslim Brotherhood, Ansar al-Sunnah al-Nabawiyya, the Hijra wal Takfir group, the Mu'tazila group, and all the Sufi orders have all endorsed the view that the issue is religious and therefore should be judged by the judge of the Islamic Sharia court in Khartoum city. Liberal, liberal, Liberals, intellectuals, feminists, communist groups, and atheists have all taken issue with the views of religious groups and thus argued that the case was criminal in nature and should be dealt with in a criminal court. Although rightists and leftists generally differ on whether the issue was religious or criminal in nature, the two groups mostly agreed that the girl in question had committed heinous crimes and should be tried, convicted, and severely punished by the law. Her sentence would serve as a warning to anyone else who might attempt one or more of her heinous crimes. It is the first time in the history of Sudan that the Muslim rightists and the secular leftists have agreed on something. These two groups are like fire and water, or God and Satan. Nothing can make them agree or come close to each other. Only in the criminal and religious crimes of Intisar did they, for the first time, reach an agreed collective decision. Despite this, the disagreement between religious groups and secular groups over the court in which the accused girl will be tried is so great that a third group emerged from both of them. This third new group called itself the Independents. Independents saw half the truth in both groups. They argued that the issue was religious as well as criminal. The Independents suggested that Intisar's case be heard by two judges and two joint jurors from the two courts. However, the panel of lawyers and judges strongly rejected these views on the grounds that such a combination could lead to a serious problem and complicate an already complex case. In order to reach a just solution, the dispute was referred to the Sharia Court, the Criminal Court, the Supreme Court, the Ministry of Religious Affairs, and the Ministry of Justice and Equality. Representatives of those official governmental bodies made and a decision was reached by a majority vote. The new resolution rejected all of the above opinions. One, that the trial of the suspected girl before the Sharia court alone is a wrong decision. Two, that the accused girl be tried before the criminal court only is an incorrect decision. 3. The guilty girl being examined together by a mixture of a religious judge and secular judge is an impractical and absurd and decision. Accordingly, the serious charges against the disobedient Muslim wife fleeing from the verdict of obedience and who was recently arrested while trying to escape outside the country were divided equally into religious crimes and criminal cases, and each court was granted half a share. This solution was accepted by all the conflicting parties, and thus the complex issue was settled. The suspected girl Intisar Ibrahim Mustafa Jabir must appear before two courts, two judges, and two juries. Two hearings have been scheduled. First, she has to appear before the magistrate and jury of the criminal court. After that, she must stand before the heavenly judiciary of the Sharia court. When they made this fair decision, the dates, places, and timing of the two trials were published in all local newspapers, TV channels, and radio stations in the country. It has also been announced by Arab TV and radio channels in the Middle East and North Africa, and all other social media avenues posted them on the internet several times. The Sudanese government has encouraged all good citizens to attend these two historical trials. When the above dispute was settled, another serious problem arose. It was established by the Mufti of all Muslim homes in the Democratic Republic of Sudan. The virtuous Mufti fell ignored because he was not consulted on such serious, mundane, and religious issues. Even worse, he had not even been invited to the meeting of these important governmental representatives at their previous meeting. Being the highest religious authority in the country, His Excellency thought his advice should be sought. He also argued that instead of resolving the dispute by majority vote, a system alien to Islam and borrowed from the infidel Western secular system was supposed to be decided through a fatwa. According to him, the matter was to be resolved in one inspired word of God uttered through his holy tongue. So the Mufti made a big fuss. Such noise may complicate the problem, cast doubt on the new solution, and eventually led to serious division. However, His Highness, the virtuous man of Allah, was appeased and pacified by a visit by these important representatives. They begged His Majesty's forgiveness, and through that, they asked for his pardon, satisfaction, and blessing. An entire day's television program showed how important government representatives humiliated themselves before the virtuous Mufti and asked for his pardon. But of them, especially the religious, fell at his holy feet and kissed them. Some secular people preferred to kiss his sacred hands instead of his righteous feet. At the end of the program, the virtuous Mufti gave a very long religious speech. The main theme of the sermon is to warn the Islamic nation of the danger of Western secularism and the hateful slavery of apostasy. According to him, the presence of two courts, the Sharia court and the secular court, in a Muslim country in itself indicates the influence of the West on Sudan. He hoped that there would come a time when there would be only one court in Sudan, and that court would be the court of God and his noble prophet, the Sharia court. At the end of his speech, the virtuous Mufti attacked the Christian religion and its unbelieving Christian followers, who are the enemies of God Almighty and his beloved messenger Muhammad. For unknown reason, His Eminence the Mufti also attacked the Jewish, describing them as damning brothers of apes and pigs. He even called America the great Satan and the imperialist country, and Israel the Zionist state that the Jews established in the land of the Arabs. He concludes his sermon by saying, "Woe to those who brainwashed the apostate Muslim girl Intisar and converted her to their corrupt and false Christian religion. Woe to the priest who made a marriage contract with her Christian lover Sami as a Christian girl, despite knowing that she married a Muslim man, Hassan. And woe to those who gave her travel documents and tried to help her escape from her homeland and go and live in the land of the cursed infidels in Canada, which the Prophet Muhammad forbid his followers to dwell among the land of the infidels. The Muslim religious fanatics who listen and believe the fairy speech of the Grand Mufti of Sudan immediately put it into practice. They randomly pick up a large Catholic church and burn it down. Fortunately, that day was not a Sunday when usually a large number of people gather to pray inside the church, and thus few injuries occurred and some human lives were lost. Some Christian girls of South Sudan and the Nuba Mountains were subjected to gang rape by Muslim men in the streets of Khartoum city in broad daylight. The reaction of some Muslim religious fundamentalists to the inflammatory and provocative breaching was also extreme. They demanded the immediate closure of the United Nations office, the Red Cross office, the Human Rights Watch office, the NGOs, and all Western diplomatic missions in Sudan. Those concerned foreign offices that provided the apostate Muslim girl Intisar with her immigration documents and free travel air ticket justified their action by saying that they acted under deception and therefore should not be held responsible for any activity illegal or criminal in nature undertaken by the detained female suspect. This justification was accepted by Muslim fundamentalists under one condition. The girl's suspected lover, Sami Osman al-Taib, who has fled to Canada, must be returned to his native country, Sudan, to stand trial for apostasy, adultery, deceit, forgery, and high treason against the country. But the Canadian government ignored this request on the grounds that apostasy from Islam, conversion to another religion, and sex between lovers are not crimes punishable by law in a secular Christian majority country like Canada. With regard to obtaining travel documents by deception and forgery, it is a common practice among persecuted immigrants fleeing third world countries, and therefore these two charges, according to Canadian secular law, are also unfounded and not criminal in nature. From time to time, thousands of illegal immigrants flee from Africa, the Middle East, and Asia, smuggling themselves with their women and children across the Mediterranean Sea and entering Arabian shores without official travel papers. Hundreds of them get drawn in the raging waves of the Mediterranean Sea. The Muslim Brotherhood and their female counterparts of the Khansa Muslim Sisters call on the Sudanese government to reward the honest police inspector Abdel Sattar Abdel Qaffar, who arrested the damning apostate Muslim girl Intisar at the All International Airport Sudan for his good work. The honorable title should be given to the righteous son of Sudan. This title is more honored and respected in a Muslim country than a person who has won the Nobel Peace Prize. However, their demand was not made by the government for many reasons. The most important of these reasons is that the International Airport Security Police inspector who arrested the disobedient apostate Muslim wife who escaped from the verdict of obedience is not a man of prayer, but rather he drinks alcohol and smokes cigarettes, bango, and shisha. and does not come to the mosque to perform the five daily prayers except the compulsory public prayer on Friday. Moreover, he is accused Moreover, he is accused of being a secret member of the Sudanese Communist Party, whose members do not believe in the existence of God and consider the Holy Quran not to have been revealed from heaven, but to have been written by the Prophet Muhammad. Anyway, on that fateful day, after the harsh female interrogators extracted the supposed truth from the apostate Muslim woman, the adulteress and the disobedient wife who fled from her Muslim husband Hassan, and the rule of obedience Intisar, using on her their cruel and inhumane harsh methods, her half-dead body was transferred to a female doctor in the woman's prison clinic for a medical examination. A corrupt female doctor declared her fit for prison without examining her badly battered body. From there, the female police guards carried Intisar's lifeless body and dumped it in the barracks of the woman's prison in Kobar. It was at 9:45 p.m. when the body of the suspect girl was dumped inside barrack number 19. It is another barrack inhabited by Muslim goblins in Khartoum, just like the demons of Kuku or the Shaitan or the son of Iblis and his gang members in the Gadarif city prison. The other inmate had already eaten their last meal for the day. The lights were turned off as soon as Intisar's body was brought in. The barracks turned it into another large dark tomb, and the women prisoners were buried collectively in a bottomless pit. The new female inmate remained lying on her back without turning right or left. Her body is very weak and damaged. Her strength was completely exhausted due to the harsh beatings by the female detectives. She has no ability to move her severely damaged body. She feels dizzy, nauseous, and her body is feverish. Her ears hear the voices of the female prisoners screaming, laughing, crying, and talking. This noise is as if it's coming from the underworld. Her nose helped her to tell that there was no ventilation in the crowded park. She felt as if she had either been thrown into a filthy public toilet or being burned or being turned into a fitted cesspool by women residents. She can hear the voices of all animals. Some women bark, some roar, some howl, and some groan. Other detained women whistled, others sang, and others recited aloud Quranic verses and performed night prayers. While this infernal atmosphere continued, Intisar was hit on her face with three shoes, and some unknown hard objects hit other parts of her semi-naked body. The confused atmosphere led her to believe that she had been thrown into either the Taha Bahshar hospital for mad people or the Altijani Al-Mahi sanatorium for mental illness. Then Intisar heard a heavy knock on the iron door. She guessed that the knocker was one of the prison guards. She is right in her guess because the inmates in the endless hall have yielded so many threats and dirty words like "get out of here, you fucking guard woman," and "dirty street bitch, come inside and we will fuck your big ass with a stick and fuck your mother's pussy too." All of these inmates are female suspects and prisoners. Thus, the so-called detained, disobedient Muslim wife Intisar Ibrahim Mustafa Jabir began her second night in one of the Sudanese women's detention centers in Khartoum city. Chapter 79. The Islamic marriage contract is incomplete. The story of Intisar is familiar to the classic tale The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway. The old man caught a huge fish and stayed all night in the sea fighting with sharks to keep his big fish safe and sound. The clever fisherman saw that he would sell it for a large sum of money and make a good profit. When the morning came and the day began, the old man had come ashore with only a skeleton. Killer sharks ate the flesh of his large fish and left him with the skeletal remains. He could not sell it or dispose of it. He could he should cry over it and bury it somewhere. Likewise, in Tisar, she became subject to attack by deadly human sharks from the time she escaped from her family's home in Gadar City, due to the fear of being caught by the policemen and sent to the house of obedience of her so-called lawful Muslim husband. Then she traveled by truck at night and came to the capital of Sudan. She was constantly attacked by human sharks until she was finally caught at their international airport in Khartoum city while she was trying to escape from their hell, which is correctly called the Democratic Republic of Satan. This is what they call euphemistically and in a less aggressive way the democratic Muslim country of Sudan. I think it is an oxymoron sentence or a contradictory phrase to call a Muslim country a democratic country. Now human sharks have only a skeleton left to be convicted of apostasy and sentenced to death and then hung on the gallows or allowed to be stoned to death by Muslim men on Friday afternoon for committing adultery with her lover Sami while she was supposed to be a chaste wife to her Muslim husband Hassan. Then they could burn her remains to ashes or bury her in a grave as they did to her and their eight innocent late sister Firdaus. Howbeit, in case of intisar, the Islamic law does not permit the burial of the body of an executed apostate. In the meantime, the accused girl of apostasy, adultery, and high treason is looking forward to her execution as a great savior for her from the suffering that torments her body and mind day and night. She concludes that no more evil could befall her than the evil she had already suffered in prison. She saw that death would be a mercy and blessing for her, and not an unbearable torment and curse. However, the apostate Muslim wife who became the Christian bride in Tisar is wrong in her conclusion and expectation of judgment and conviction for apostasy, adultery, and speedy execution because she does not know the serious problem that her religious case has caused it in all parts of her motherland Sudan. The problem started as an innocent altercation between some classmates at a high school for boys in Khartoum city. The problem would never have arisen if this argument had not occurred. It started as a friendly discussion between students of the same class who follow two different religions, Islam and Christianity. Such an innocent discussion turned into a religious debate. The controversy led to a fight between these Muslim students and the Christian boys. That fight became a police case. When it came to the police, an intrusive journalist poked his nose into it and published it in one of the capital's most popular newspapers. It didn't end there. It was also published by other newspapers in many cities in the country. Then the problem became like a deadly epidemic or a coronavirus spreading like wildfire every second and every minute across the country. It spreads through word of mouth, phone calls, text messages, faxes, and emails, and through Facebook, Messenger, Twitter, Viber, WhatsApp, Google, YouTube, TikTok, Paltalk, and Clubhouse, chat rooms, TV channels, radio station, and other online social media. Muslims discuss it with people in their homes, students in their schools and universities, worshippers in God's houses known as mosques, and Christian believers in their prayer sanctuaries within the body of Christ, which is called churches. It was discussed by citizens, foreigners, and refugees in markets, sports fields, nightclubs, protests, taverns, refugee camps, and many other places for social gatherings, such as weddings, circumcision of male children, purification of the private parts of male girls, which is known worldwide as female genital mutilation, or FGM, places of funerals, funeral processions, restaurants, popular food shacks, and so on. Then the difficult problem traveled at the speed of light and crossed the Sudanese borders and spread to all African and Arab countries. After that, it spread at the speed of the sound over large areas through satellite channels and the internet all over the world. It has become a heated discussion in every nook and cranny of every city in Sudan. Families discuss it in their homes. Then it crept into mosques and churches. In a short time, it became a serious problem between Muslims and Christians in Sudan. In cities where religious fanaticism is strong, it has led to riots and fights between men and women, all men and aged women. Many people were severely beaten and some seriously injured. Nevertheless, this is according to police authorities are minimal. There is an official police report that 200 people were killed in the capital city alone. Some Christians were attacked in their homes, and their wives, mothers, daughters, and sisters were gang raped before their very eyes by Muslim men. Therefore, senior government officials anticipated the seriousness of such a problem if left unchecked for too long. Accordingly, they saw the urgent need to solve it. That is why the matter was immediately referred to the virtuous mufti of all Muslim houses in Sudan's Democratic Republic. The Christian citizens of Sudan felt bad when they learned that the solution was sought only by a Muslim religious authority. In the opinion of Christians, why not consult the Pope of the Vatican in Rome or the Pope of the Copts in Alexandria city in resolving such a serious religious issue? Despite their public protest and justified religious objection, senior Muslim officials in the Sudanese government ignore the objection of what the Quran calls the misled Christian infidels who worship Christ Jesus, the Son of the Virgin Mary. They deliberately left it up to the Mufti of the Muslim lands to give his wise religious advice and holy fatwa and to tackle the baffling problem once and for all. Before we find out how His Majesty peeled the onion and dealt with the complex problem and supposedly sank his holy teeth into it and solved it, let us first make it clear and properly diagnose it. To trace the problem for its roots, it started as a concept and turned into a reality. The problem started when some Muslim and Christian students who are classmates in the same high secondary school for boys asked, does the accused apostate Muslim girl Intisar who converted to Christianity and became an infidel Nasraniya woman can be considered a wife of two men or one or not? These classmates are three Muslim boys and two Christian lads. According to the two Christian students, the apostate Muslima woman Intisar, who became a Christian girl, should be considered the wife of a Muslim husband and another Christian husband, Hassan and Sami. As for the Muslim lads, they believe that she has one legal husband, and that man is Hassan Mahjoub al Hilali. They argue that her relationship with the apostate Muslim boy Sami Osman al Tayyib, who became an infidel Christian man, was adultery. The problem would have ended there. In fact, the entire Muslim community in Sudan shares the opinion of Muslim students. Based on this opinion, the Sharia court will judge and convict Intisar as an adulterous wife. If this is the widely accepted view of the Muslim community, then where is the problem? Well, it wouldn't have been a problem if it weren't for a Christian boy who turned out to be a student of genius in religious matters. With his extraordinary intelligence, he found a loophole in the definition of marriage in Islam. The Quran never uses the word marriage, but it always uses the term nikah. In Surah Al-Nisa 4, verse 3, it says, "And if you fear that you will not deal justly with orphans, so ankahu as many women as are pleasing to you." 2, 3, and 4. And if you fear that you will not be just, then one woman or what your right hand possesses. However, this verse has been translated in English as, "And if you fear that you will not deal fairly with orphan girls, then marry those women whose beauty pleases you." 2, 3, or 4. Therefore, the word nikah in the Arabic language is incorrectly translated as marrying women whose beauty pleases you. 1, 2, 3, or 4. But in order to be more accurate and truthful in translating the verse, we have to close our ears and then say quietly, "Fuck woman who please you." You can use your dick to fuck one woman's pussy. You can use your cock to fuck at the same time two women's camels. You can use your phallus to fuck the private parts of three women at a time. And you can use your dick for fucking the pussies of four women together. But you are not allowed to sleep with more than four women at one time. And yet, you may fuck any number of your Jariya women or your slave girls without the need to marry them, whatever their number. This explanation may seem vulgar, and many people, especially Muslims, may not like it, but this is exactly what the verse of the Holy Quran conveys. The Quran never mentions the word marriage, but it always talks about fucking the woman's pussy by the man's dick. Whenever it refers to sexual relationship between men and women, which is usually criminalized by Sharia law if it occurs outside the Islamic marriage bond. According to the Shurit Christian student, how can Nikah Hassan's relationship with Intisar be called marriage when the two have not had sex with each other until today? The Christian boy's argument is conceptual one, and so he is absolutely correct in his conclusion. The Prophet Muhammad once refused to allow a married man to divorce his wife and ordered him to have sex with her even once. He said to him, "You must taste her honey, and she must taste yours." In other words, you must insert your dick into her pussy and fuck her until she is sexually satisfied and your semen will fly into her womb. That is why Islam calls fornication in marriage the the nikah, or a sexual intercourse contract. The Muslim boys try to silence the Christian boy by saying that every marriage contract would eventually lead to sexual intercourse between husband and wife. And the Christian boy stress his point of view by saying that this intercourse did not happen, and perhaps it will not happen, for there is now an impossible gulf separating Intisar and Hassan. That is why the Christian boy said Hassan cannot be considered a legal husband of to Intisar unless you guys have to go against the Quran and the Prophet Muhammad and change your concept of marriage and accept our Christian definition of the sacred bond between husband and wife. In this way, you should only acknowledge the Christian marriage between Sami and Intisar because the two had intercourse several times during their honeymoon at the hotel. When the genius Christian student could not be silenced by arguments of speech, Muslim lads began to accuse him of mocking their Holy Quran and ridiculing their infallible Prophet Muhammad. After they were unable to silence the stubborn infidel Christian boy, the Muslim boys used their hands and killed him. When the police and the media announced the killing of the intelligent Christian student, the problem became a national and a global issue, a difficult and intractable issue that everyone could not understand and could never be solved. It has become a problem for 45 million Sudanese in schools, colleges, offices, homes, clubs, mosques, churches, buses, trains, sports stadiums, nightclubs, bars, and brothels. The problem has been hotly debated constantly day and night. The main question is, can Hassan be considered the legal Muslim husband of Intisar? Some said yes, some said no, and others said we don't know. Those who said they didn't know are the majority. Accordingly, there is a division among the people again. Priests, pastors, laity, feminists, atheists, communists, and all Christians of Sudan, Egypt, and Lebanon, and other Arab and African countries accepted the opinion that Hassan Mahjoub al-Hilali could not be considered the legal husband of Intisar Ibrahim Mustafa Jabir. Islamic imams, Maulanas, mullahs, sheikhs, mazuns, muftis, terrorists, religious scholars of Al Azhar Sharif University in Cairo City, and other Muslims all over the North Africa and the Middle East are divided and fragmented into many groups. We will ignore the many small groups with either silly opinions or hard to understand views and focus on just three. The first group argued that Hassan is a legitimate Muslim husband to the dissident Muslim wife who is fleeing from the verdict of obedience, who has been arrested as an apostate in Tucson. The second group confirmed that they could not be, he could not be considered a legal spouse. The third group believed that the Islamic lawful marriage contract between Hassan and Intisar was incomplete. When this question became a big problem and another intractable worldly issue led to a division in Sudanese society, resulted in a lot of bloodshed, the senior officials of the government Sudan took the matter seriously and then referred it to the Grand Mufti of all the homes of Muslims in the country. This time, of course, they avoided their first mistake and then included the greatest Islamic religious body and the greatest man of God called His Holiness, the Grand Mufti, in this sensitive religious issue. And when and why did the virtuous Mufti of all the Muhammadan houses in the Islamic kingdom of Tartarus lock himself up in his private chamber for 7 days and 7 nights? During that long period, he researched in many religious books that are called the mothers of Islamic books. He read the Holy Quran again from cover to cover, although he knew it by heart. He also examined the volumes of Islamic traditions, the four rightly guided caliphs, the four famous imams, who were the founders of the four schools of Sharia: Malik, Abu Hanifa, Ibn Hanbal, Al Shafi'i, and all the other mothers of Islamic books, and many other writings of Muslim scholars throughout of the 14th centuries. of the history of Islam. Rather, he consulted the writings of the greatest Muslim scholar, who is second to none in his knowledge of Islam except the Prophet Muhammad, who is called Al Imam Abu Hamid al Ghazali, also nicknamed as the Hujjat al Islam and the defender of the Islamic religion. There is a rumor spreading like fire in Christian circles, but we cannot confirm it. During those 7 days of intense research, His Highness departed from the path of his predecessors and searched in the Jewish and Christian holy books that are known among Muslims as the Torah of Moses, the, the Sons of David, and the Gospel of Jesus. In all those religious books and great minds, he could not find this difficult question that baffle all people, men, women, and all folks, Muslims, Christians, or a secularist, or a non-worldly alike. Nevertheless, the Mufti emerged from his long research seclusion and honestly admitted to the public that he could not find an answer to the baffling question. But he said that as the highest religious authority in the country and the sole mufti of all Islamic homes in Sudan, he should issue his own religious fatwa or decree. In his fatwa, which he claimed was inspired by God Almighty, the virtuous mufti refused to say that the Islamic marriage contract is not legal, and also exposed and rejected the opposite opinion that claimed the legality of marriage between Hassan and Intisar. He said that these two views are extremist and are not supported by any Islamic religious references at all. Then His Eminence agreed with the Sirs, saying that the Islamic marriage contract is incomplete. The marriage contract will remain incomplete until Hassan and Intisar have sex together. Thus, the husband must taste the honey of Intisar, and the wife should taste the sweetness of Hassan. Simply, the Mufti ordered in his fatwa that the Muslim husband Hassan must fuck by his dick the pussy of his disobedient Muslim wife Intisar, who is imprisoned in the woman's jail, or rather rape her even once in her. Indicates that any possible legal means should be taken by law enforcement officers to achieve this goal and the necessary Islamic religious requirement. If this basic and inevitable condition is fulfilled, the goodwill of the legitimate Muslim husband of the Nashis or the disobedient Muslim wife must be considered complete, and their relationship is halal Islamic marriage in the Sharia of Allah and His Prophet. Thus, the virtuous Mufti ordered through his fatwa to give the deficient Muslim husband his rebellious lawful wife in order to complete his incomplete marriage contract with her and legalize her pussy legally. The period for consummating the marriage should not exceed 3 days. After that, the apostate Muslim girl must appear before the two courts for her persecution. Persecution, the Sharia court and the criminal court. At the end of his fatwa, the virtuous Mufti blamed himself and all the religious scholars in the country because none of them noticed or discovered such a religious error. In conclusion, he said that God Almighty used an infidel Christian boy who is unclean to disgrace the Muslims, their scholars, and their nation to awaken them from their delusion that they can live in peace side by side with their Christian enemies who are infidels according to the Holy Quran. The Mufti added that Islam considers Jews and Christians to be cursed infidels and enemies of God, his beloved Prophet Muhammad, and Muslims. For this reason, they are called together brothers of apes and pigs and worshippers of Al Taqut, who is Satan, the devil.